Exactly 5 minutes past 3. That is the time on Pachikomo FM. Echoes from the U. I'm not alone. I'm with the big Dhara. Prominent Zimbabwean journalist. I've seen him interview Nelson Chamisa. I've seen him sit down with Sengezo Shabango, the man of the moment. Not forgetting gender identity. Mr. Dhara, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to your listeners.
You know, I'm so humbled to have you at this particular moment, because we're having a media giant, you know, a respected individual within the media fraternity. I'm so humbled by your acceptance of our invitation as Pachikomo FM.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled to have those nice words said to me. I don't look at myself as a giant. I look at the people who listen, who support our programs, and the guests that come and grace our production as the giants. You know, we are just a vessel. We just provide news to the people. I mean, this is what we do. But I'm humbled with the kind words.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mhlanga. But Mr. Mhlanga, just getting into the segment, I actually, have known you for some time now. Known you since 2020, if I'm not mistaken, when I was in Form 3. I've been following, the Free Talk by the Frederick Newman Foundation on Heart and Soul TV, particularly the Free Talk program that you are the anchor of. And one thing that I found interesting when I found you physically, or when I actually saw you physically, is your humility. How do you manage to be so humble, having had, milestones and achievements, to your name?
I appreciate one thing, and this is the most important thing in life, right? That it is not me, it is the people at the end of the day. I am just a messenger. I'm just a person who happens to sit there and take a public good. The media is a public good. It's not a personal space. It's not a space where I do things that gratify me personally. So when you sit out there and put programming together, and you have 50,000 people, 150,000 people watching a podcast. The interview that I did with Nelson Chamisa sits at 145,000. The interview that I did with Sengezo Shabango sits at 106,000 on YouTube. I mean, that's a big feat. That's a massive big feat. I've been in print media for a very long time. I have over 20 years experience, and I've been writing stories for Newsday, for the Zimbabwean Independent, the Standard, right? And I've been writing front page stories. But it's not because of me. It's because of the sources of people who are out there who trust us with information. That when they give us this information, we are going to produce it and publish it unmolested. And for me, that is the most important thing. Without the people, without the information that we receive, as journalists, we are nothing. We need to appreciate that. The moment we appreciate that, we owe our whatever it is that we have to the people that we serve, to our listeners. And we owe them allegiance. And we owe them loyalty and faithfulness in the work that we do. That's when we begin to change. And I'm glad that I have arrived at that position.
It's so profound, it's so deep when you speak about the people power and how people are the anchor of whatever you do. But one thing that I found amiss as I was browsing through the internet, just a quick Google search, Blessed Mhlanga, will not review your background, will not review exactly where you're coming from. I've seen, of course, there's a Pindula article that tries to speak about you, but I want to get to the bottom of who Blessed Mhlanga is. Who is Blessed Mhlanga? Some have called you Blessed Mhlanga, including Nelson Chamisa, but who is Blessed Mhlanga?
Look, I think it's important that the people answer that question. I think it's important for people to appreciate the message more than the person. And I've always wanted to say this, that it is not my business to become the center of news. It's not my business for people to begin. I'm not running for public office. I'm a journalist, right? And as a journalist, I concentrate my art in terms of telling people what they should know, right? But if people want to know who I am, it's something that we can have a conversation on. I'm just a simple guy. I grew up. I was born in Hillside, just down here in Harare. I went to Eastridge Primary School. From Eastridge Primary School, my dad moved to Mtoko. I went to Masara Kufa High, Masara Kufa Secondary School in Mtoko. I used to walk 12 kilometers from home to school and back, a total of 24 kilometers every single day, barefooted. If you want, I struggled to get through life, basically because I had stepmoms in my life and stuff like that. But I have this history and this background that I have. But the most important thing for me is that my history and my background is not what determines who I am. My history and my background has no determination as to who I am right now, right? Today I sit here with you as classmates doing a law degree, right? A lot of people have wanted to talk, and some people have coined me a vendor and they say I didn't go to school, I'm a vendor, I found myself in journalism and stuff like that. Not that vending is a bad thing, right? It's not bad. Vending is, I mean, most of us were brought up by vendors in our lives, and even people with degrees these days have been reduced to vendors, right? So I always say I'll discuss my academic qualifications with my employer, but I do hold a degree in media. I'm doing a degree in law. I'm proficient at what I do, And look, if I was a vendor, and let's say I was, wouldn't you be proud? Wouldn't Zimbabweans want to take lessons from a guy who was a nobody and became a vendor, and now is a reason for them?
A senior journalist
at Newsday. I'm the head of broadcasting at Newsday. I run the current affairs department at Heart and Soul TV and radio. I've brought myself well. I don't struggle in life. I've been to many places across the globe. I've been to the US, to the UK, and places,
We'll get there, blessed. So I want to ask, with this background, what really inspired you to study journalism? Why journalism? You could have done a lot of things. Why journalism?
You see, there's one thing that people don't understand about me, and let me tell you. When I was at Eastridge Primary, right? So I went to John McCleary preparatory school. So that was the grade 1 and grade 2 for Eastridge Primary. Then from there you go to Eastridge Primary, right? I was not really good in sport. I couldn't play sport. So when I was in grade 3, I wanted to travel with the sports team, right? So the only way that I could travel with the sports team was for me to become a journalist for the school. So I would travel with sports teams, record the scores and what happened. And on a Friday, I'd stand on the chair at assembly at Eastridge Primary School and read out the reports. I became a journalist at 3. Wow. I went to Nyamuzwe High School, boarding school, briefly when I finished my grade 7 at Eastridge Primary. When I went to do my Form 1, I was at Nyamuzwe High, Methodist. I sat down there with my English teacher and my English and literature teacher, Mr. Shumba. We started a school magazine at Form 1 at Nyamuzwe High, where I was the editor of that paper, of that magazine at Form 1. So I was born to do this. People sit and think that I just woke up and say, I don't have anything to do, let me do journalism because it's probably the easiest thing to do. No, this is a calling. I'm called to speak to people, and I speak to them. Naturally, I find it easy to speak to people. I went through journalism training. But half of the things that I know, I don't owe them to journalism training. I owe this to Charles Rukuni, who was the Financial Gazette Bureau chief in Bulawayo. I owe this to Misa Zimbabwe, who organized massive trainings for junior journalists like myself to interact with senior journalists like Barnabas Tondlana and the others who impacted in my life, nuggets of wisdom, things that you don't get in graduation school. This is what made me different from everyone who's gone to school. Even though I've also gone to school, I need to emphasize that. Yes.
That's so deep, blessed. And as I was just looking at your CV, you have quite a rich CV to the extent that just I think last week when your property was broken into, it was all over the news, and when your dogs were stolen, again it was all over the news. So how did you rise to such a level within the media fraternity? How did you rise to prominence? Can you shed more light on that?
Hard work and honesty. Hard work and honesty. Look, there's this thing in Zimbabwe, right? That when you know Nike, there can't be anything better than Nike, and that's wrong, right? If you know Ruben Barre, we can't all be Ruben Barre. So there's one thing that you need to understand. What are you good at? Get your niche, right? Develop yourself in that area. That's the most important thing for me that I have done. I looked at myself and I say, what is it that I was good at? I was good at writing stories. I was good at going to communities, going out in Gokwe, in Shavane, in Beringwa, and writing the people's stories that nobody was listening to. And someone noticed this. And they brought me to a space where I was made the senior reporter of politics at Newsday, presidential reporter, right? And I built sources, relationships around me. Your network is your net worth, right? When I was doing all this, my interest was not about me. It wasn't about me. It was about saving the community in which I came from. It was about telling the story unmolested, And I always made it a point that even though I was lacking in terms of financial well-being, I was not going to receive bribes from people. And as a result, I got and gained so much respect from people that I worked around, right? And one thing that I've also learned doing this law degree and stuff like that is that there's a fundamental thing that's very important for people to be able to appreciate. It is the ability to be factual, to be evidence-based. So no matter how much people hate you, as long as it's factual and it's evidence-based, you still stand and wake up in the morning with your conscience clear, hands clean, and stand up and say, count me because I'm going to say it. And I do say it.
Wow, that's so profound. I'm getting a lot of wisdom. It's like I'm extracting honey from a pot of wisdom. But you've been accused, Dhara, for having a sweet spot in some people's words for particular politicians. You say to have a class bias when it comes to these interviews. Can you talk to us about that?
I think people listen to what they want to listen. They say what they want to say. I personally do, have my personal feelings as a human being, right? But when I sit on the table that you're sitting there, remember when you invited me to this interview, what I said to you, I told you I don't want public relations. I want the hard questions. I know you. You're my friend, and we're in the same class. But if I'm coming there, the questions have to be real. And this is me, I don't care whether you're my friend or not, right? The biggest problem in Zimbabwe is if today I sit down with Nelson Chamisa, I have an interview with Nelson Chamisa, the people who support Nelson Chamisa will accuse me of being ZANU-PF. If I sit down with Christopher Mhlanga and have an interview with him, the people in ZANU-PF will accuse me of being Triple C or being MDC. If I sit down with Douglas Monzoe, the same happens. What's the interview that I had with Nelson Chamisa when I interviewed him in Mhlanga just after the launch of his Triple C manifesto. He told me I was ZANU-PF straight in my interview. When I was having an interview with Douglas Monzo, he told me my friends were Triple C. When I was having an interview with Patrick Chinamas, he told me I was funded by the British. When I was having an interview with the EU ambassador, he didn't like particular questions that I was asking. This is not my platform. My business is to ask the questions that you want answered, and you don't have the opportunity to do so because you don't hold the public good that I hold. I hold the public good, which is the media, the platform. Heart and Soul TV and radio, Alpha Media gives me that platform, gives me that power. I just to mention this, right? If I were to call someone, okay, now that's different. But 10 years ago, if I was to call someone and I say, if I was to call Tendai BG and I say, I'm blessed Mhlanga, he would say, who are you? Right? But if I called him 10 years ago and I said, I am blessed Mhlanga, I work for the Newsday. He spoke to me, not because of me, but because of the public good that I hold in my hands, which is the Newsday. So if you are to call me on the street and say you want to have an interview with me, who are you? But because you work here at Pachikomo FM, you hold the public good, you call me, I respect the institution, right? So this is not yours, my brother. You sit here in trust. This does not belong to you. You sit here in trust for the people of Zimbabwe or for the people of this community that you serve. So everything that you do, the news that you read, the music that you play must not entertain you, because it's not for you. If it was for you, you'd close your door in your room and play your music and enjoy it and read your own news. If it was for you, the moment you begin to broadcast it to other people, you must be responsible, not for yourself. So I sit down with people that I would not sit down, generally might not like, generally might not believe with, but I give them an opportunity to be heard on my platform because it's not mine.
Wow, that's so deep. And as we discuss this, I begin to reflect on some of the questions that you have asked, even people that I think you are inclined to, or people that you might like naturally. So can you talk to me about journalism, because this is the career talk, and there are people that are studying journalism right now at the University of Zimbabwe and many other institutions who might be watching live or who are going to watch this broadcast. I would want to ask something. What is journalism, or what was journalism like in your yesteryears, and how is it like today?
So I want to say this. I take students on attachment from the University of Zimbabwe, right? I think currently I have 4 students on attachment who come from this university. I have 3 from the Midland State University, 4 from GZU, some 3 from Kosa, and I think 2 from Harare Poly. So we teach each other journalism. There's this thing that about journalism yesteryear and now, journalism remains journalism. The way it was practiced then and the way it's practiced now is still the same thing. You are basically supposed to stick to certain rules of journalism and ethics, and those rules and ethics have not changed. What has changed are the tools that we use to gather and disseminate news, right? So in the past, you just wait to have your news on ZBC radio and TV, or in the morning you get it on the Herald or on the Daily News and the Newsday, right? And literally we all dependent on what we call mainstream media today. But the difference now is that anyone can be a broadcaster today. You can talk on your Twitter, on your Instagram and stuff like that. You can disseminate news. So what has come now is that more responsibility for journalists has come. The need to ensure that there's more accuracy, because people are spreading false news left, right, and center, right? That's the most important thing. But my heart bleeds most of the times, basically because the people who are being trained as journalists in institutions, in universities, are being taught bookish things. And when they come for attachment and we start attaching them, and we start asking them to perform journalistic duties, they're unable to do these things, right? And that concerns me. So I've spoken to some of the lecturers and asked them to address these things. But what I find missing is that most people have devoted their lives to being career academics. So what happens? You do your undergrad. After your undergrad, you do your master's, you do your PhD, and you're teaching. You've never been in the industry. You don't know anything about the industry. The only thing you know about the industry is what you have been taught in your textbooks. And that is wrong. You need to have experience. I think there's a time when government said, and at that time I thought it was, it was crazy. They said they wanted lecturers to go on attachment, and I was like, yeah. But I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. I don't think they should go to attachment, but I think universities or Zimshe must have a policy that before you become a lecturer, you must at least have 5 years working experience in some reputable industry. Don't just come from grade 1, grade 7, Form 4, Form 5, Form 6, university, master's, PhD, and you are now teaching people what to do in industry. How do you know what happens in industry? You understand? How do you know what happens in industry? I mean, you must get into the newsroom. You must be able to get your hands dirty, understand the things, right? I went to church one day, and the pastor was saying, I go to this beer halls. I go there, and some people ask me why I go there, and he says, I can't be talking to people about things that I don't know. I can't tell people, don't go Kubao. I've never been Kubao. I don't know what's wrong about Kubao. And that's the thing. How are you teaching people? You find the way Maduku teaches you law, right? The guy knows his stuff. He's in court every other day. He's winning cases. Every other day when he's attending to a court, he's learning something new. He's understanding the industry. And when he produces a lawyer, who has experience, who understands what needs to be done, not what is written in books.
I completely agree there.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Blessed, I'm going to ask you a quick question. You've been arrested, and this is what shaped my question of saying, what was journalism like in your yesteryears, during the infancy of your career and right now at the peak of your career? You've been arrested several times, you've been acquitted, sometimes you actually had to sue for malicious arrest, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that. So can you talk to me about that?
So every profession has its own risk. Doesn't matter whether it was yesteryear or, but it's got its own risk. I remember when I was going to school when I was in Masarakufa, right? A teacher beat up a child, and the father came with an axe, and they wanted to discipline the teacher. I remember I have a cousin who now doesn't have his hand. He was a boiler maker. I think it was a whole steel that fell on his hand, and it was removed. Right? Journalism equally in Zimbabwe is a hard-hit area, right? Where there is labeling. I'm labeled Triple C, I'm labeled as an PF apologist and stuff like that, and at times we get arrested. I've been arrested, I think, 8-9 times in my lifetime as a journalist. I've been acquitted 4 times. The other 5 I didn't go to court. Right? I've been sued. I was sued by one person for 150,000 United States dollars. Went to the High Court. I won that lawsuit, and that guy had to pay us 25,000 in our legal fees and stuff like that. So. But all this is an experience. It teaches you certain things. Teaches you to understand that you have to be accurate. So if I was not accurate in the things that I'd reported, I'd probably be in prison, right? I took time to verify, and it's important to verify items, right? If I had not been accurate and had not verified, I would have lost that defamation lawsuit, and my organization and myself would have paid 150,000. I don't know where I was going to get it, but those things teach you to be strong. They teach you to appreciate issues and to be more measured as a professional. and then you get to go far. So those things are very important in the profession, and you should, if it happens to you, don't be shaken. Some of these things are done to shake you, so that you stop delivering the work that you committed yourself to deliver when you became a journalist, right? So don't be shaken. These are phases. They happen, right? Some people think it's safer to be silent. It's safer not to talk about these things. I'm here to tell them that they are wrong. Remember, on August 1, 2017, just after the elections, there was a woman who was walking from her office, walking home. She was shot dead. She had nothing to do with the demonstrations. She's dead, right? So if things want to happen, they'll happen. Whether you are a journalist, whether you're home, right? Or whether you're in a hall somewhere.
So thank you so much for that response. Now, Mr. Mhlanga, there's one thing that I found interesting. Just last week, I was watching Free Talk, and you sat down with one of the ladies who managed to bring Aliko Dagonte to Zimbabwe, and I found it interesting. How do you feel as an individual having connections with such people, with connections, with the richest man in Africa? What can you say?
Look, this Josephine, she was just a friend of mine when I was in high school. She was at Hatfield Girls High. I went to Cranbourne Boys High for my A-levels. She was doing a Form 3, Form 4 Hatfield Girls High, right? I used to stay with my aunt in Hatfield. And so Hatfield, they have these big plots here, yards, right? And there was a ball at our house. And you know what? I was responsible for tending the vegetable gardens at my aunt's place. So I'd go to school in the afternoon, I'll come, I'll water the gardens, I'll make sure that the vegetables are watered and stuff like that. And I used to sell those. So people would come and knock at our gate, and then I'll sell. And that money was the money that we used to buy bread and stuff, basic things that was done at home. And I used to manage that, And Josie was one of the people who were in the community who used to come and buy vegetables, and we became friends, right? At that particular time, I became friends with a whole lot of people in the community in Hatfield who are my friends right now. And it speaks to, you never know what the next person you're sitting with is going to be in the future. So some of us want to think, that person is a nobody. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going. But this is where it all starts. You begin to make friends. When she brought Aliko Dangote, I was like, Josie, that's the girl we used to play with, and she equally used to call me her brother and be like brother and sister, right? And wherever she has been, So in my time of need, I have people that I can call, she can also equally call me, and it's important to have those relations in life. This is why I think one of the first days that Professor Love Mumaduku was in class with us said that look at the people around you, make those connections, because you never know. That next person is going to be the High Court judge. You're going to be appearing before them. The next person is going to be the president of this country. He's probably going to appoint you a minister. If you don't make those relations, you lose lifetimes of opportunities.
Wow, that's so profound and deep. But I'm saying, how do you feel, being connected to these people? If they created opportunities for you as well, you're connected to one of the media giants, who again is your boss, Trevor Ngube. You're connected to the president himself. I once saw a picture of yours. I was scrolling through your Twitter profile yesterday. I saw, you having the president. You have all this vast, I would see you after lectures with, the Minister of Skills Development, communicating. Can you talk to me? How do you feel as an individual in that capacity and in that portfolio?
That's the beauty of journalism. That's the beauty of journalism. One of the major advantages, journalism doesn't pay. But the beauty of journalism is that it gets you to the right people. You get connected, you talk to the right people. I mean, your business is to talk to people. How do I feel? How do I feel being in that space? Well, I feel absolutely privileged. I feel absolutely privileged to be able to call a minister and get my phone answered, to be able to invite Nelson Chamisa to come and sit next to me and have a conversation with me when other people just see him on his campaign posters, to be able to walk into Sherwood Farm and sit down with President Emerson Mhlanga. You know when the coup was happening, I was one of the very few journalists that the president would talk to directly. But these are things that you build over years, right? You build this through factual reporting, through consistency to ethics, right? There's one thing that I always tell people, especially the students that I attach, right? Is that people want to be associated with people with value. If you don't have value, people don't want to associate with you, right? So the people that talk to me know that I have value. And I also talk to them because I know they have value. So create your value, right? Some of us want to run around and have boyfriends and have girlfriends before we create value in ourselves, right? The moment that boyfriend of yours finds someone else with value and you don't have value, they're going to ditch you. The moment that girlfriend of yours finds someone with value, they're going to leave you, right? This comes at that micro level. Imagine in business level, right? Do you think Strive Masiwa would sit down with someone who does not bring value into their life? Right? I feel absolutely privileged, but I also feel so happy and satisfied because I've worked for it and I'll continue working for it to keep it there. It's not something that comes overnight, you work for it.
Wow, that's so deep. Beyond the career talk, we're also getting into relationship advice, real relationship advice. Thank you so much, Dhara B, for those insights. But I love to read books, and I'm sure the listeners at home and on campus, you are at an institution of higher learning, the premier institution of learning in the land, which is the University of Zimbabwe. So what books would you recommend to an ordinary listener and a person who is about to embark on journalism, where they get these ethics of journalism which you're referring to? Which books would you recommend?
So the first book that I found, I found very, very useful for me, and I think this book is something that everyone has to read, regardless of their station in life. Introduction to Law by Love Momaduku. It's so basic, and it tells you things that you need to know about your day-to-day life. The law affects everyone, regardless, right? So I'd encourage people to read that book. And the other book that I've read and I found very interesting. I forget the author, but it's called The Informant, right? It's a real life story about espionage, company espionage in the United States of America. And that is an amazing book for journalists. It talks about how information was gathered and stuff like that, how information was verified, and those kind of things. So those are the two books now that I would like to I would leave for people, maybe just basically because of my bias of where I come from, right? But I'd strongly discourage people to read Mills and Boon. I strongly discourage people from doing that.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'll ask you the reason some other time. But just because of the jealousy of time, I'm going to ask one more question. Before I leave, as you do on your show, you leave, from... I didn't follow. Now, Dhara B, I would want to ask, you studied law at the University of Zimbabwe. Why are you studying law, particularly now? When I look at you, you're someone who is of economic means. You're not someone who's struggling to earn a living or to survive. You've got everything that anyone would need. You've got, all the economic base. Why the need of a superstructure?
Yeah, so quick two reasons. The first reason is that when I was arrested in Chitungwiza for taking pictures within a polling station, even though I was 200 meters away from a polling station, my lawyer Jeremiah Bamu were sitting in the boardroom, and Jeremiah Bamu were discussing on the defense. And then I said to him, "Look, Jeremiah Bamu, this is what the law says. This is not a crime on this reason and this reason, and this is our defense." And then the guy said, "Chief, why don't you just go and study law? And I was like, why? He's like, yeah, but you already know all these things, you know. And he challenged me to do that. So Jeremiah Bamu is part of the reasons why I'm actually here studying law. But the other thing is, when I went to the United States of America and later on went to the United Kingdom, I realized one thing: journalists, they are not just journalists. So the journalists who are specialists in certain areas of knowledge. Sanjay Gupta is a doctor, is a qualified doctor, you know, but he's a journalist. You'd find Richard Quest is an economist, established, you know. When you know something outside journalism, you know, for instance, when you know law and you're a journalist, you're far, far much better than you are when you're just a journalist. Because, for instance, if you're going to be following a court case, you're going to be following, say, a presidential electoral challenge, you're a lawyer, you're a journalist. You actually know all the steps that are going to happen. You can actually question and look at the cracks in the systems. You can produce a better and more informed report than anybody who just came out of college holding a communications degree. But better still, you know, you can be a company secretary. You are able to deal with the company's public relations, public communications, and the law at the same time. In this nation where companies are cutting costs, it is very essential for people to find value and retain value in themselves, to be able to do 2 or 3 more roles as an individual, right? Than to just be this person who says, I'm a print journalist. Like, remember, I've moved from just being a print journalist, because I was a print journalist for over 15 years. I've moved from being a print journalist to be a multimedia journalist. I do print. I have experience in print journalism. I have experience in broadcast journalism now. I have experience in social media and packaging news on TikTok. Now I'm going to be a lawyer.
Wow.
I'm sad.
You know, it's so fascinating how you're revealing and unpicking those, you know, insights. I'm actually beginning to understand that apart from law, I also need to appreciate other disciplines as well, so that after, you know, graduation, I can then, you know, navigate my way to say, okay, I offer this, being one individual, one entity. So Dhara, as I said, you know, without, you know, asking you a scriptured question, as you would say, can you talk rather to the people who are listening to this program right now, be it them studying journalism, be it them navigating their way to the top, what is needed, what are the ingredients?
Look, thank you very much, and I want to thank you very much for having me. I think from the time I started journalism, this is like the only interview that I have sat on the opposite side of the bench and spoken. But I do have a life story. When I'm ready, I'm going to talk to it. I am going to write a book about how I got here and the pitfalls that I've faced. Coming from a family where I had struggles growing up with stepmoms and going to rural schools and having a background that many people would not be really happy about. But for me, this is what motivates me, and this is what I want other people to be motivated with. That where you come from must not hold you. Your past is not what should determine your future. You are better than yourself. As long as you believe in yourself, as long as you decide to put value in yourself, it's very, very important. And also what's important is to go beyond the book. It's to go beyond the book. A lot of people have degrees. A lot of people have passed with flying colors. They have distinctions, but when you put them on the table to work to deliver, it can't translate that education to deliver. You know, they have become sort of critics. They're always on Twitter trying to tell people you should do this, you should do that, you should have done this, yet they can't go out and do it themselves. If you are able to do something, right? I want to say this. There are certain people who believe that education is not necessary because they've seen the Wikineals of this world and the Mike Chimombes of this world. I'd want to say that education is very, very important, but it's not the end all. It's better to have an education and not need it than to need it and not have it. Right? So go to school, do what you've got to do, but learn a life skill. Be able to do something so that you can change your own life and the lives of those around you. But lastly, journalism is the lifeblood of democracy. Factual journalism is the lifeblood of democracy. It's not about the journalist. It's about the value that you... So whenever journalism or media is attacked, it's not the journalist that's being attacked. It is you. It is you. They say you can have a drought, but with a free media, you not have a famine, right? That means because of the free media, it can tell you that a drought is coming, it can tell you ways to prepare for it, and then you are more prepared when it comes, so you avert a famine. If you don't have, we'll tell you, then when it finally happens, because you were complacent, you're placid, you get into serious trouble. So it behoves everyone, whether you're an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, or just the guy who sits on the street, to protect the independence of the media, as we should protect the independence of the judiciary. I thank you so very much.
Well, thank you so much, Dhara B, for accepting our invitation as Pachikomo FM. We are Pachikomo FM, 98.6 FM, and that is who we are.
Pachikomo, the ultimate power in the universe.